problems that the past generation had to worry about.
Does it worry you though, Easton? I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Does it worry you though that this young generation gets their information in like 30-second to 1 minute TikTok-y, IG-y, video-y sound bites?
You know,
how do you? I mean, I'm from your perspective. I will say this. I'm kind of intrigued by some of this. Like, what do you think about that? Like, I mean,
you know, first period we had a long discussion about the lifetime of a turkey in a freezer. And what the student did was he searched up on Google how long a turkey lasts in a freezer, and it said indefinitely. Now, I don't believe the turkey will still be edible, but it will last indefinitely, and it wasn't stated on the information, but it only took not even 30, it only took 15 seconds for that to happen. I feel like it's I don't know, it's easy to mislead people now.
Correct. That's the part that I think it's, it's concerning because especially, again, not to go down this rabbit hole, but, we look at AI and how they can, like, manipulate the way things are, at least AI from a video, audio information system. And I think that's the part that us elderly people that, Dr. Rico and myself and Mr. Canfield, maybe those two first, myself last. But I think about that. We used to have to spend a significant amount of time researching before we knew kind of the facts behind something. And like, I think like to your turkey point, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to eat a turkey 20 years old from a freezer. No.
To be fair, it was 2.
2, okay. I don't even know if I want to eat a 2-year-old turkey in the freezer, but sometimes, that's information that you can get quickly, but there's also misinformation you get quickly. And again, I'm just kind of curious, like, your guys' vantage points. Do you feel like that's a place where young people will continue to lean on? Or do you see that your young generation like yourself is going to, have a little different openness when it comes to how they gather their information or anything like that? What do you think, Jeri?
Well, so like in my household, we do have cable, but we usually use our streaming services, right? Yeah. And so back then when I was in elementary school and we would watch cable TV and the news, nowadays we don't really do that. We just pay attention to social media and our streaming services. And so there's people and news broadcasting people that will go on to TikTok, Instagram, all those platforms, and they're going to say the news because they know that the youth are on those applications. And so, like, I know that credibility is a really big thing when it comes to watching those videos and trying to understand what's going on. And I think it's cool that we can see that from, what's happening in other countries and other parts of the world, and we're living here in Las Vegas. So, I mean, I think it's effective, but I also think that children that are younger than us that are kind of, going a little haywire nowadays, but I think that if they find credible news sources and they, do their research personally to form their own opinion, then we could, hopefully it can grow in the future.
Yeah, no, I like what you said. You said a few things there that was kind of just, this is still Mr. Canfield's segment, right? I'm sorry. I just figured we'd just take your
tag team it.
Yeah. I think from a world standpoint, I think it's brought us closer together. The social media, like we now can see what's going on in other places around the world. I guess the one thing that, like, again, going back to us elderly people, we always are worried about the mental health of the young people, mental health of all people, but specifically this generation. Do you think, Jeri and Easton as well, that this kind of the way we get information, right, through your phones, social media, TV, do you think it does, or do you see it having an impact on your friends and other people with mental health and everything like that?
I don't know if you know this, but there's a Instagram page. I'm sure everyone here is aware of SpongeBob. Mm-hmm. There's news fish, and what they do is they take the talking fish and they play the news. So it's like, it's not taken as seriously. So it's like serious events, like meteor hit is going to happen in October, and then it's just a SpongeBob fish letting you know all this information. You check the comments, and it's just all funny and laugh. Sure. So I mean, the news is getting out there. It's just not taken as seriously. But then again, we do have a bunch of things that are taken seriously. It's pick or choose. It's a gamble.
So you think your young, your young generation is doing a better job of deciphering, and you think it doesn't affect your way you go about like I just worry, we worry about like mental health and information coming your way and being overwhelmed. And when this started going, we were worried about like the cyberbullying, because like you mentioned comments, and like how it is, like someone posts something, then like now 1,000 people can say something horrible, whereas like back in our day, you want to say something, you say it somebody's face, right? And not everybody's as courageous, but a lot of times we have keyboard courage, and I think that's we always worry because it's hard for us to always stay on top of it. But I'm just wondering, like, I talk to different young people about it, and they deal with it in different ways, or don't take it as seriously, or they brush it off. I even talked to my own son about it. He's like, Dad, it's not a big deal. It's like, they don't even think about it. So, yeah, just kind of, that's why I'm always interested to see, your guys' vantage point on that stuff. So
he did make a really good point with the picking and choosing. I know that, like, when talking to my peers or seeing on the internet, if someone will choose to like look at something else when something else is equally as important, and so there's certain times where people will, I'm this, and that, and then turn around and they're like, I don't care what's happening over there. It's not affecting me personally, but it's affecting our world as a whole. And so when years go on and it's just progressively getting worse, it's like it has to be in our face for us to realize what's truly happening. And so I feel like with our generation, we haven't experienced like something huge. The pandemic, that was really big for us, and that definitely, I think it helped, and it also worsened our like social skills. Yeah, like, we're more reliant on our cell phones now because we sit at home for like 2 years. So I definitely think the pandemic it was negative and positive, but
My son jokes about that time in the pandemic, and he and I always talk about it. He's like, Dad, when I'm like 80 and I'm a grandpa, they're going to be like, grandkids will be like, oh, Grandpa, how was that pandemic? And he's going to like, let me tell you about this pandemic back in the day. And I just laugh because, like, you think, I'm glad we can kind of joke a little bit about it. I know it's affected so many of us in different ways, but it just, you think of that, right? Because, like, we went through some, in our generations, some pretty bad stuff, too. And you're like, those are, like, the galvanizing impact that's had. For some, it was like 9/11, right? Well before you guys were born, right? That's a day that's like scarred in my head forever. Like watching that happen on the news in the morning, and I'm like a young 20-something-year-old going to work, and I'm like, is that really happening? Like that will never like leave my mind, right?
But it brought us together too.
It
that
did.
was the biggest thing.
It's true. It unified us as a country for a short time, but and there's other monumental things in history that occur, right? But this, for sure, the pandemic is one of those points, and we'll always remember, good, bad, or indifferent, for what happened there. But yeah, I thank you for your guys' vantage point, for sure. I think that's helps us be better, right, at what we do, for sure, every day.
With social media, so I didn't mention, I have two daughters, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. And we still don't really let them to have a phone yet, right? What ages did you guys access phones? Was it early off? I'm trying to fight that middle ground. What do I want to do? Do I give them a phone yet?
You got to give them some advice now, young people.
So I got my first cell phone at 9 years old.
Okay.
But I got it to call my mom when I was walking home from school, and I didn't have social media on it. I was just to call my mom, play the games that she approved. So it was more just like, here's a responsibility. Do not break this phone. Do not lose this phone. It costs a lot of money.
Got it.
And so it just taught me at a young age to appreciate technology or like gifts that cost a lot of money. And so, if you think your children are able to grasp the fact that it's an expensive phone and it means a lot, then I would do that. But you can always get like a smartwatch and wait a little bit longer.
Very true.
And then also middle schoolers are mean, so hopefully get a phone before middle school because they will get shamed on it for, especially
if they
nowadays.
don't have one.
Yeah,
I got you on that.
That's a very big thing.
What about you? Before I go to middle school shame, I have a great middle school shame story. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a weird subject. When it comes to phones, it's one of those things where I want it because someone else has it, and social media, but that comes later. You don't have to worry about it as much. I would say if they are responsible, give them a phone. But back in my time, when I got my first phone, it was an LG minute phone.
Yeah.
So I didn't have social media. I didn't have, and if I did, it was, you could count the pixels. You couldn't even use it. But it was one of those things where it was a use, not just a distraction. So I think if you teach them the use instead of the distraction, because the more you hold off on a phone, the more they're going to want it. They're eventually going to get their hands on a phone. If it's from a friend, they might already have a phone, and you have no
well,
clue.
you never know. I'm gonna have to search the room.
So we're going to go down this rabbit. Dr. Rigo, how much time do we have left? We're just going to be here all day. Are we good? We're overtime?
Whatever the bosses say.
Well, yeah, because I know we got to run. But I mean, I have a couple things about phones. So middle school shame story. My son was shamed in middle school because we did not give him a cell phone until he was second semester of 8th grade.
Ooh.
Oh my
God, tell me about it, right?
That's crazy.
But it was at first he felt like, oh, Mom, Dad, I don't have a phone. And then it became like the fun running joke. Like he was the only student in the entire middle school of 1,300 kids. I'd get like the principal and the assistant principals would text me and they're like, when are you going to give your kid a phone? I'm like, nah, he doesn't need one. He can just ask his buddy to use his, or he can use the school phone, whatever, right? And then we finally gave him 1 second. But it was hilarious because it went from him being embarrassed to like a badge of honor, like some point at the 8th. And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need a phone. It was funny, but that was one shaming story there. But the other one I wanted to throw your way, I'm going to throw you guys a thought or a question. What if in class, you had to lock up your cell phones during the entire instructional time? You can get them back in passing period. You can get them back at lunch, of course, before school, after school. But during class, now we're not talking lock with lock and key or safe. We're talking on the desk, Velcro, in the bag when the teacher's teaching. What do you guys think about that?
Let's talk about the Yowie pouches.
Yowie, they're Yondr, but it's different. Yeah, but I like
Yondr pouch.
you should start a business Yowie, some Yowie pouches. I like that. Yeah.
So I went to a charter school for middle school, and there we did not have our cell phones were just not a thing. It was turned off in our backpack. However, we did have kids that would take their phone out and
Sure, of course. Yeah.
break the
Yeah,
rules.
of course, yeah, of course.
I know that like when I'm in my class, if I have like free time where I do not have any assignments to do,
Free time.
I just
Anyway, go ahead.
I'll go on my phone. But like if we're having a lecture or the teacher's talking or if we're like doing an important assignment, I know like my own responsibility is to listen and pay attention, ask my questions, and not be on my cell phone. My peers are, it depends on the
Jeri.
class.
Jeri.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I think it just depends. I think it would be effective, but also you would have a lot of backlash because of it.
Of
Because it's like,
course.
oh, it's my cell phone. It's
No
my
one's
thing.
taking it. It's
I
there.
know,
It's
but
like the way my phone is right now, right? It's like right here.
temptation's a big thing too.
I know.
It's just
I
staring
actually glanced at
me.
my phone during our.
Yeah, I saw you. Yeah,
You
so
saw
you
me.
can't
You
go
should have
without
called
it.
me. No, I can go without it. Kind of.
About an hour maybe.
Yeah, see. But Jerry, there should never be free time in class, but that's a whole different thing. But I understand what you mean, some instructional downtime that you're working independently. But I will say this. You don't see that, you think that'd be a problem with you young people? If I put, like, we had a cell phone bag on a desk and it's managed, maybe there's some times in there where, like, is there a middle ground where you're like, okay, I got to put them in here for this time, but if the teacher says I can use them for something in the lesson another time, because do you not feel like it would be a distraction away from what you're supposed to be doing in class if you had to constantly have your phone at your fingertips? What
It's
do you
definitely
think,
a
Jerry?
distraction. Oh,
Do
it's
you
a
wanna
weird
take this
topic.
one?
I know.
I'll-
I'm just
yeah,
throwing
I'll
it's a
share one
ghost
thing.
item. I'm just throwing it your way.
Yeah, you definitely get backlash, but I mean, backlash, you get that for everything,
Yeah,
I assume.
sure,
You
yeah.
probably get it for locking the bathrooms up.
But yeah,
Explaining it.
certain times, yeah.
The what?
You don't think there would be?
Yondr pouches?
Well, yeah. Like if you had if we're talking about if you had a bag, and the only reason why I'm saying that is because this is going to happen in our school district
I know.
next year. Now it's not going to be like put them in there, never touch them, blah 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 blah. But it's going to be. It has. I think the one thing that many of the teachers will say to us is like, we're losing those precious minutes with teaching and learning because the distractions. And like, I always say there's no such thing as multitasking.